been married for 15 years. I have 2 children and 4 grandchildren, another one on the way. Everybody lives in West Texas. I just got back from West Texas, so I beat the weather. And I've been in government for over 28 years. I began my career in government, and prior to government, certainly I worked for private industry for a while. Worked in the oil business. I worked framing houses, surveying, and I worked for an engineering company, do soils testing and concrete and asphalt. I did the inspections on the Sam Houston State football stadium. It's been a long time. It's been there for a while. I went into the city of Huntsville, working in the engineering department on inspection on roads and water and sewer. I did a lot of the special projects with them. I moved into public works. I worked in that, in the roads and sanitary and sanitary sewer and water and whatever we really need. I was supervising that position. From there, I moved into the finance department, and I handled the warehousing and the purchasing. And prior to, like I said, coming in, I did some procurement with an oil company also. And I worked there, and I worked through the summertime doing that. In 1992, a position came open for a purchasing agent in Montgomery County. I applied for that position, and I worked with district judges that did the hiring. The purchasing agent worked for district judges at the time. They gave me the job, and one of the comments they made, they said, "Well, Mark, you know you are from the Northeast." I said, "Yes, I do." They said, "Do you think you're ever going to go back there?" I said, "Well, I can't control where I was going." And so they hired me on that, and it turned out that they were Sam Houston State guys, and I was from Sam Houston State. So, you know, I didn't know that for a number of years. And I worked for district judges for 14 years. And in 2006, I became director of infrastructure, and I handled a lot of the special projects prior to being an infrastructure director. But under the umbrella of the infrastructure, besides my department, you have purchasing, you have maintenance, custodial, environmental health, community development, which handles HUD funds, the airport, convention center, and I oversee the animal shelter. It's a run by a private company right now. I've handled a lot of special projects. I pretty much handle all the space planning for the county when it comes to building construction, and we handle all the construction management, every construction manager with us in the office. So it's pretty much a roundabout what I've done in the last 28 years, but I bring a lot of construction background and been involved in transportation. I helped start up the pass-through tolling. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's when the 242, 1314, 1486, all these projects, when we had a partnership with the state of Texas. We were the first to do that in the state of Texas. And the county's investment was approximately $162 million. The state invested $33 million, but they were state roads. And so I pretty well brought that up to the extent of the administrative side of it. And all the contracts were being worked on with a private company that was hired to do that. So I have a lot of diversity in what's going on, and I understand the county very well. Most contracts that are in the county when it comes to construction and through my procurement background have been set up, I've put in place. So that's kind of a roundabout.
Why don't you start off, Ken?
All right. What are the 3 big areas for the budget that you would adjust?
Well, one thing I think on the budget itself, I think that the budget needs to be moved into a department of itself. I think the budget needs to be worked on not just on the annual basis. I think it needs to be looked at quarterly. I think that the budget, you need to visit with departments and see what's really going on, have an understanding of what they do. And I've always worked with departments, so I understand what their needs are through the procurement side of it. I think the budget, I just think maybe we just need to set up the budget. Maybe, I'm not going to say zero line budget coming in, but I just think that we can do a better job with the budget. It just seems like we have a lot of excess funds that we could probably put into long-term planning with the budget, certainly with transportation and with the sheriff's operation and the courts. So to me, those are the main 3 core things in government. I really think that that's what we should focus on, and I think within the budget, I think those should be the first things that come to the budget presented in Commissioner's Court, since they're the largest items that we have, and shouldn't be, Sheriff's Department shouldn't be the last item that we deal with in the budget and see what's left over. Elsewhere in the budget, I think we can consolidate some departments in the budget. I've done that with my infrastructure and purchasing department. We actually work off of one budget with two departments in there, and it works really well. And it's allowed a lot of departments to work together under the infrastructure umbrella, where we can get things done and save some money by doing that. So I think those are some things I can do.
In your position, when let's just use the Corley building, you oversaw that building being built. Did you have any involvement in the procuring of the contract, or?
No, sir. The normal procedure in, shall we just address the Joe Corley and the mental health, or just one at a time? Well, the Joe Corley facility is a $43 million project plus $1.8 million on FF&E. FF&E is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. The process for this project in May of 2006 was supposed to have been a design build financed by a third-party lease purchase back to the county. There's a draft document that I saw back then. I knew they were working on it. At that time, I was moved into infrastructure, and I wasn't handling the procurement process. Somewhere along the line, a finance corporation was created, and I don't really know why it was created, other than they said to get tax exempt status.
That was the Montgomery County Jail Finance Corporation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's a sister facility in Livingston that was put together with the same contractor, same architect, but they didn't have a developer like we did. And yet they followed all the procurement guidelines as far as I would have put them together. We did the inspections on construction, but we didn't do the normal review of the plans. Can I ask this question? Does anybody see me on YouTube?
No. I mean, I haven't, sorry.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right. Anyways, the Joe Corley facility, what should have happened, it should have gone through the procurement process. Anything over $50,000 by statute requires you to bid it out or do a RFP, request for proposal, based on professional services, architects, engineers, things of that nature. For some reason this didn't happen. It wasn't on my, construction projects and should work at a certain level and go up on the recommendation. These projects came from the top and came down. Really, we weren't involved in the review of the plans, which we normally are. We weren't involved in laying the contract out, because in public works contracts, you lay them out by labor and materials. It's called schedule of values. And if you don't have a schedule of value laid out by labor and materials, then it's too easy for money to be hidden in the project. Do you want to just keep on, just 3 minutes on this?
Go ahead, I think you need more time.
I could talk 2 hours.
Yeah, don't talk 2 hours.
My problem, you know.
But yeah, direct this question.
Yeah, just hit me hard.
So, your understanding of the bid system, it was not followed?
Absolutely not.
And it was I understand that Ms. Rainey said that she handled all that, and that was...
You know, they hired outside attorneys, okay? I know that Phyllis Rainey tried to have this consultant that the county hired to do work that others have done, should do, didn't need to do, etc. But I can't say that Phyllis saw all the paperwork, because if she really truly saw it all, she would have probably questioned what went into it.
Okay.
So, but they hired outside attorneys to do it. Nobody knew they're going to be using a consultant to handle the procurement process, and there's just a lot of things that goes into detail on those projects, tremendous detail that basically I stood up, and as you know, and, in April and questioned it. I can lay it out, both projects, to $16 million right to the penny. So they basically...
So let me follow up on that.
Yes, sir.
So when did the red flag start going off that something was wrong?
And no red flag really came off, because it was pretty clear that a particular commissioner was over the project. That's the commissioner's decisions. I don't really control that.
But you said it was unusual.
It was
It's never done
unusual,
that way, and you know that you have to do 3 bids,
but
right?
that didn't come back till later on. Okay, when the FBI pretty much asked me to provide paperwork and look into some things, that's when I really started learning. We really
So
didn't,
about what time did the red flags go up, like, oh, maybe there's something wrong here?
I wanna say probably for me, in 2010. And when I say that, it had nothing to do with the Joe Cooley, it had to do with the mental health facility. It's just some conversation that I had with somebody, and they made a comment to me, they said, well, we agreed to a price, and that's the price we should build it for. And my comment back was, so long as we're getting what we're paying for. And I had a document in my hand in reference to another project that I had sat with this guy previously. So there was no red flags coming up, simply because commissioners, they had someone looking at it, they were doing what they did. We didn't get to see the plans, and really, honestly, had no clue that people were doing things in advance of what they should have been.
So then, when were those 2 projects built?
The Joe Corley contract went through Commissioners Court in 2007, I believe. And
So you were in procurement at that time, or?
No, I was in infrastructure.
Infrastructure, okay.
Yeah, so the procurement process would have gone through someone else, had they, don't get me wrong, I'm over procurement part. But remember something, they said they created a finance corporation.
What was the name of that?
It was Montgomery County Finance Corporation, and the reason that they created a finance corporation, which is a legitimate organization, but it represents the agency, it's Montgomery County.
And so then, and you're talking about April, you went before Commissioners Court? And
April of this year, 2013.
So, okay, back in 2010, when you're kind of like, something's not right here, I mean, as a county employee, a head county employee, I mean, what do you do? And, I mean,
Well-
it's like, who do you turn to,
That's a
and
good question.
who's your friend, and how do you make sure you don't get in trouble, and how do you make sure the taxpayers are
Well,
taken care of?
absolutely. Well, at the time, there were people coming after my career, couldn't figure it out. So I'm not gonna get into the personal side of it, I'm just telling you, that's kind of was the red flag that came to me. And something had to
Oh,
be
so
up.
that's what alerted you?
Absolutely.
Things were
My
going on,
career,
okay.
you're right, I had people coming after my career. Honestly, when I was put in the infrastructure in 2006, I thought it was at first I thought it was for the right reason, and later on I figured it really wasn't. Something had to be up, I didn't know what it was. I really didn't, so I set an appointment up with the Attorney General's office in Austin. I drove to Austin. And I want to say this was probably around July of 2010. And so when I got to Austin, they canceled the meeting.
You did, or they did?
They did.
Okay.
So I came back and I called them and left a message, just to let them know that I'm still interested. And one of the things I ask you is, well, are you currently working? And certainly they want to know who you are rather than being a disgruntled person. I had the set of plans with me, really didn't know what was going on. Things just didn't seem right. People coming at me. About 4 months later, I got a call from the FBI. They asked me to come visit them. I did. And they asked me if I'd bring paperwork. But I said, sure. I believe there were probably about 3 or 4 people that may have contacted the FBI about these projects. So I presented the documents to them, and then lo and behold, you probably know a lot that went on from there. But as I started doing research on it, I just realized that a lot of things were circumvented. And the more and more you got into it, the more and more you saw that people were actually working on the projects in advance of approvals, putting plans and specifications together, and you would have never known because you weren't part of it. Things weren't laid out appropriately. We never got a copy of the bonds on the Joe Cooley until the mental health facility because it didn't come through. We signed off on the construction part the best we could, and we questioned certain things, but we were just told, this commissioner's handling da-da-da-da. And it's difficult when you don't have people you can go to, okay, that you work for, and you're really not sure where they stand.
So your turn to was the Austin, helping Austin.
That was my turn
That's where you
to
went
first, is go there, because people coming after me, there's a reason they're coming after me. I don't know why, so I turned to them, because quite frankly, I wasn't sure that anyone else was gonna do anything.
All right, let's go ahead, Gail.
Okay, everyone in Montgomery County is a conservative. And of course, that depends upon how you define conservative. So how do you define conservative? What things would you say are the definite marks of a conservative versus someone who maybe says they are and really aren't?
Well, I think it's number one. I think it's values, character, integrity, transparency. I think these are things I bring to the table, and I have always brought to the table in 28 years. I've never had anybody come up ever proposition me for anything. They know where I stand, and they know that I treat them fairly. I think that, you know, in reference to the people need to understand what it, read the Republican platform. I mean, there's a lot of values in there that I believe in, and one of them in there is this, it's about Joe Corley. It talks about bidding, it talks about the requirements. So I just think that,
What values are we talking about? I mean, you know, some people, there's all kinds of values. He's kind of find out, give me some,
Specific
something
values.
a little bit, he wants to understand what kind of values.
If you had a checklist
Yeah.
that says yes, no, conservative or not, what are some of the items that would be on that checklist?
You mentioned fiscal.
well, fiscal responsibility certainly to me, but I think for me it's, I guess I can round it out in outside of business, but I just think for me to be conservative, it's pro-life, it's Second Amendment for me, these are conservative values on that aspect of it. In government, it's just, I think character is an important thing to determine what you do and how you do it. Physical responsibility, no doubt about that. Transparency, to me, it's I don't know. People said that I've been conservative so long that that's just it's a habit for me. And I just think doing the right thing for the right reasons is what you should be conservative about. I mean, it's to me, it's common sense to be conservative. For me, it's how I do business. So I may not be giving you what you want, but I'm just it's kind of who I am. It's how I operate. So I'm pretty open. I'm very open when I do things. And, when it comes to the procurement part of the world, I make sure that the best value is gotten for the dollar. I think that's a responsibility, and I think vendors would tell you the same thing. So.
James?
Well, don't you think that we're gunning for you? You got a number of good things going for you that you mentioned. I don't see how we could doubt whether or not you know how to perform the job of the county judge. I mean, you've been there for a long time. And I understand you were in a difficult situation. So I'm going to ask you about the transparency part. I do know, you know, these corporations that they formed, and obviously I don't think anybody here is still clear on what they're doing, other than you'd mentioned it was supposed to be a deal where it was leased back to the county.
Yes, sir.
But that was very confusing because the county commissioners are on the board. A county commissioner is president of each one, and you're on the board as well. So my question is, it looks to me, one thing that would be is something closed to the public, because they're corporations, and probably would be arguably not under the Open Meetings Act. So my question to you is this something you would ever support, or if you did, are your board meetings going to be open to the public?
Well, number one, I believe a finance corporation is a legitimate organization if it's run appropriately. Number two, I think you should have other people sitting on that board rather than the.
Were those meetings open to the public, the board meetings?
The meetings were held in commissioners' courts. So in other words, the agenda item was on the agenda when commissioners.
So it's part of the regular commissioner courts
Absolutely.
meeting?
Right.
Well, they said we're now starting a board meeting of?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I don't know what any discussions were taken before that. I wasn't really on that board hearsay that way when I was basically assigned the document as I was asked to, and I did because it was a legitimate organization. I had no idea it was going behind the back door. And I'm not even sure that they weren't already working on it at the time when I signed it.
Well, with you as county judge, you're going to be incorporating companies that basically are just quasi-county commission. I mean, why do, it just sounds a bit nefarious for someone to do that, and it's tax dollars, our tax dollars going into a private function. You talk about conservative values. Well, sometimes it's not a matter of is it a conservative value, it's a matter of where is the appropriate money coming from. And when it's tax dollars, it's going to be a hard argument to say that if it's a private commercial venture, why are you using my tax dollars?
I don't disagree with that, but one of the things you need to keep in mind on these two projects, if I may.
Sure.
we hired a developer. My philosophy, developer brings two things to the table. Anybody can bring the idea, but it's land and money. They brought neither. In normal projects that we did in this aspect, you hire a contractor.
Mhm.
All right, and we acted as the construction company that oversees our projects. We always oversee our
You're talking about the procurement department does,
not just the
right?
procurement, we have construction management that we inspect those projects. There was a developer in place there wasn't a necessity for them to be there. All right?
Right.
And that's why it originally was a design build, financed by third-party lease purchase back, as though it was their money. Something happened, okay, that changed it over to a finance corporation. And I don't really know what happened there, other than they had to get tax exempt status. They went to the IRS to talk tax exempt status, and the key thing here is, it was an 1,100 bed facility that ended up being 1,007 beds. When you do construction on jails, it's based, the construction cost is based on the number of beds.
Right.
So the bed count is about 38,900 a bed. You calculate the difference with 93 beds, it's $3.5 million. Now, I told you it was $43 million project, 42,855. That cost never came off, they never brought that down, and we never knew this
The
until.
county attorney is investigating that right now, right?
They're looking at the civil side of it. Yes,
Right,
and
that's
I've
what
sat
they-
with them on that subject matter. And so, there's a lot of scenarios. One of the things that was picked up in both these projects is the fact that the architect's fee, what they told the developer it wasn't what the developer told us. And under these types of projects, we only get to deal with the developer. We didn't get to deal with everyone else. And on the way, when we do projects, we make everybody break it down. Even all the subcontracts, we want to see it all, because when you do, you say, hey, isn't this price a little high? Let's go back and adjust this price. We never saw all that. It's being handled by others.
Let me go, yes, you got a question?
Well, let me follow up on that also. You're probably familiar with the scathing letter that came from the grand jury.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
their recommendation was that the Commissioners Court impose some new ethical guidelines.
Right.
What sort of guidelines would you impose, and would you have a financial disclosure for yourself?
Absolutely. I have financial disclosure for myself, and the problem is already a conflict of interest statements that are out there that they're required to bring forward. For example, if you do business with somebody and you exceed 10% of your last year's annual salary you received, you're supposed to report that. And that didn't happen. And you're also not allowed to, if you take money from a business associate that you're giving work to, you're not allowed to vote on those contracts. All right? And one of those contracts was stopped in the mental health facility. It was deferred in Commissioner's Court, and yet it still went through court because a particular commissioner took it, ran with it. But it was deferred from the appropriate department. So there's no question about me laying stuff out. And the part about ethics, it's pretty simple on ethics to me. If you
Well, who's
think-
the enforcer of rules like that?
Well, I think the